Hi, I'm Liselle Sambury and welcome back to my channel where I talk about all things writing, traditional publishing, and a little bit of reading. And this is a bit of a different video. So what this is it's actually a compilation of a video series that I've been doing on TikTok, where every day that I work on it, I'm basically documenting how the drafting process goes for writing the second book in my new YA Dark Academia fantasy series, whose first book, A Mastery of Monsters, comes out in summer of 2025. And so every day I work on the book, I do one of these updates and I post it on TikTok. And so I created this compilation sort of video series here on YouTube to basically batch together each week's video into one YouTube video, just because the videos are kind of like, they're too long for YouTube Shorts, but they're also a little too short for me to want to post them every day on YouTube. And so for those of you that like my YouTube channel and you aren't really fans of TikTok, that's basically what these videos are. It's just all the videos for that week packed into one, so that you can watch this every week and you can kind of see the whole kind of videos for the week. I am still going to be doing my monthly writing vlogs, so you'll still see those, and those really include like other facets of my life and like b-roll and that sort of thing, whereas these are like very pointed, basically only about drafting this specific book. So without further ado, I will let you enjoy the compilation, and you may notice that this intro is the same for every compilation video. That's because I just wanted to do one intro that I can use for all of the compilation videos going forward. And of course, I will also put them in a playlist, which I have linked down below, so that as the series goes on, if you missed anything and there's a few videos, you can just watch the whole playlist of the compilation. This book, A Mastery of Monsters, comes out June 3rd, 2025, and whose cover was just revealed today. So if you haven't seen the cover, head over to my profile, what have you, other social media, Instagram, however you decide to do it, and check out that cover. Yeah, very, very happy to have revealed it. I think it is beautiful and gorgeous and perfect in every way, and I'm very happy with it. But anyway, back to the drafting update. Oh, also, sorry, I wasn't done. There are also pre-order links. They haven't like loaded on all of the retailers yet, but they've loaded on like some of them. So if you're like hungry to pre-order, they're in there. And of course, you can always request that your local indie bookstore stock it. You can also request that the library stock it. I would appreciate all of those things. So now that that is out of the way, the actual writing update bit. So yeah, today's chapter was several on the fly things. So I realized that I'm coming up to the moment that's supposed to be the rock bottom moment for the character. And as I've talked about in the past, I moved that up to the midpoint. So I didn't have anything for this. And I was like, what's it gonna be? And I literally was sitting at my computer and I was like, I had an idea for this the other day and I didn't write it down. I don't know why. I guess I'm just like not smart, and I didn't write it down, and now I have to sit here and think about what that was. But it did come to me really quickly, so everything was okay. And so I figured out what I want to do as the new rock bottom moment, and I decided to put that in. And so, yeah, I'm pleased with that. I don't know if it's like the best, like if it's really the lowest the character can go, but it is very like, look at that, the consequences of my actions sort of situation. So I feel like that's good because it is like a very direct kind of consequence for the character, that also has romance implications, which is important because I don't know, I said in the past that I'd set up these kind of like stakes for why romantic things couldn't happen, and then I feel like I've been ignoring it for a long time. But I mean, the character's also ignoring it, so I mean, it makes sense. And this is a time where I was like, haha, like the stakes do matter after all. So yeah, so that happened and I was pleased with that. And then there's like basically what happens in the chapter, which I haven't even said yet, my God, is that they go to their professor mentor, like they go to his place and they're supposed to be doing this like training session with him. And he's like being a little bit overly harsh with them. And then it kind of, you know, there's a reveal as to why he's like so upset and he's like having a hard time. He also reveals that the love interest was kind of keeping something from the main character, and so it's like a bit of a secret coming out sort of thing to add to the rock bottom moment. So I feel like yeah, I feel like I've got something good in place. This is also nice because it ended up being I cut a chapter, so that rock bottom moment and this professor thing, I like squished them into one chapter. So that's kind of nice. So I cut down some chapters for myself, which is good. So yeah, I'm overall, I'm very pleased with how this chapter came out. And I do have a quote. So the quote is, "You have bent to her will, you have coddled her, you have let her master you instead of the monster." It's very like, sick burn, bro. Like, I don't know, I really like it. It just feels like it's so like, dang, like you let her walk all over you, and that's why we're in this situation. But yeah, and I like it. The main character is like, what? She's like, why am I in this? Why am I being played? Anyway, it's a fun time. What a fun time altogether. Anyway, I will see you again tomorrow. And today, what I was working on was I had a chapter. It was supposed to be one scene. I made it 2 scenes. Basically, because this is a bit of an odd part of the story in that I'm trying to kind of fix some things. So some of the stuff that was supposed to happen at this point in the story, I moved up to be way earlier in the story. And so now I'm just trying to like, chapters are coming up where those things were supposed to happen, and I'm just kind of like cutting them out essentially and like messing with them. And yeah, and some things, like in the case of this chapter, something was happening like too early. And I was like, oh, that actually isn't supposed to happen until much later. But anyway, so this is a character from the second POV. And so basically, I like included a scene at the beginning to basically go through her kind of like being disciplined because of something that happened in the last chapter. Which is like yeah, so that's basically what happened. Because what happens is essentially she invites out the other main character to like go like party. Basically that's it. She's just like, things have not gone well for her and she kind of just wants to party and forget about stuff, and she's like, the main character, she's like, I know that girl knows how to party. And so that's basically what happens, because that's the sort of reputation that August has, rightfully so, to be fair, rightfully so. So yeah, so then I realized that in the previous chapter, because I'd given more space to the romance bit and like the kiss and all of that stuff, I didn't get into the part in which she's like being disciplined for something that happened. And so I decided to just like add that to this one. At first I was like, oh, maybe I'll do a chapter, but it really wasn't something that could fill out a whole chapter. It was just much better to add it as a scene at the beginning because it's only like 300 words. So I was like, that's not a full chapter worth. So I did that. And then I did this like club night thing. And then the 2 characters get to have a bit of a heart to heart. Because the last time they were actually together, they had this big blow up fight. And so this is kind of like their making up heart to heart moment, which I like and I thought went really well. Especially because like they're kind of dealing with similar things. Like this second POV character, like kind of where she's at in her life is where August at the beginning of the first book is kind of breaking away. Like she spent a lot of her life trying to adhere to a certain level of perfection, and when we meet August in A Mastery of Monsters, she's doing away with that. Like that's a person that she used to be and she's not being that person anymore. And so there is something like of her that very much understands a person like this character who is still like kind of trapped in that phase. So they actually do like mesh very well as characters like that. So yeah, I was very happy with getting to do that, and we're now like, the 3rd act is done because I had to cut those chapters. It's just like it's finished. So the 3rd act is done, which means I will be starting tomorrow the last act of the book, the final act, the 4th act, which is really exciting. And so yeah, they're gonna get right into kind of planning where to go next. So this chapter, like in the heart to heart, was also kind of them like figuring out where to go next after that sort of like rock bottom moment that has come before. So yeah, very excited to go forward with that. I'm very excited to really feel like I'm at the finish line now that I'm going into that final act. So yeah, I will talk to you again tomorrow. Today was a bit of a challenge because I'm kind of doing some things on the fly. So I decided to add in a thing to make the romance stakes more real. And basically I had to follow up on that, which I do feel like I've done some success in following up on it, which is good. And then I had to go into one of the like the matches, and the matches are kind of getting a little bit harder because it's a little bit down to the wire, and I kind of feel like they should be, I don't know, like more exciting somehow, or like longer, or like have more twists and turns. And again, because I haven't really planned these matches ahead of time, I just kind of know who wins and who doesn't win. Yeah, I'm now having to come up with this on the fly with the pressure of like, this should be more impressive, or like more something, or have like more twists and turns. And I did come up with like a twist for this match, which was good and I liked. But still logistically, the match itself, I was like, And I think also the like challenge with these matches is that they're fighting like in partners, but they're kind of like doing separate things. So like one partner is fighting one person, the other partner is fighting the other person, and so I also have to juggle that. But maybe that's how I can like step up the fights, is if they work more in tandem, because that would kind of be a little bit more challenging. Maybe that's the way to do it, because otherwise I'm just like, I need to something about this needs to improve. But I am getting to the point in the book where I'm realizing just how much like things that I dropped, like now multiple character arcs have been just like dropped off. Like I just did not give them appropriate space. And now that I'm getting into this fourth act, the thing about like the fourth act for me is that it kind of like narrows focus. So to me, the focus really narrows to just kind of the main plot. And sort of at this point, I feel like a lot of the character stuff for like the non-main characters should be pretty well wrapped up, and it's not at all. So I have not done well with that. So that's a bit of an issue for me to fix later. And some characters, yeah, just like fully just like disappeared. Like they were at other parts of the book, and for whatever reason, now that I've gotten to this part, I'm like, oh my gosh, we haven't seen that character in so long, in so many chapters. So that will be something definitely to be fixing. But anyway, so I did that today. It was really just the resolving of the stakes thing, and even not even really resolving, to be honest, followed by the actual match, which I feel like this match is like a tiny bit lackluster, but there's also like a reason, so I feel like it works all together. But I know this is going to be a challenge because I think there's like 3 more matches before the competition wraps up, and yeah, it's gonna be difficult because I think they both need to be something extra. So yeah, that's gonna be a challenge for me tomorrow. But because I cut those other chapters, I did realize that I now can finish in time even if I take the long weekend. So I will be taking the long weekend off, which is great. So yeah, hopefully that will all work out. I don't see myself adding more chapters at this point, especially because I realize that I've messed up all of those arcs, and so at this point I just need to cut them and like not even get into them, so that when I go back and I edit, I can like fix them from the top down, and at that point those chapters and that sort of thing can be added. But yeah, that's it for now, and I will see you tomorrow. And today I did a little bit of rearranging before I even got started. I think I started to think logistically about how certain events were going to happen, and then I realized that I had kind of like messed some timing things up, and so I had to rearrange and shift things around. Anyway, now I have one less chapter again. So yeah, doing a lot of cutting down, which I feel like often tends to be the way that drafting goes. As I like go farther along, like things tend to get shorter. I tend to like front load a lot of stuff. But anyway, so today's chapter is another one of the matches, but in this case it's like a spectation sort of thing. So they're watching a match. And they know the person competing, and so the main character basically like kind of like has a conversation with that person and like kind of talks through a little bit. Like they've kind of been having some difficulties, and she's kind of, well, she's sent in there to do like a pep talk. Not necessarily what she does, but that's the purpose of why she was sent in there. And this is a character who she's supposed to have had like quite a bit more heart-to-hearts with throughout the book, but clearly I did not succeed at that because a lot of character arcs got dropped as I just got like bogged down in the main plot. But anyway, so this is me like trying to course correct a little bit at the end and like make sure they kind of come together a little bit more. So there's that moment, and then there's an actual fight, and that match happens. And like I said in the last time, I'm kind of like in this situation with the matches in which I'm like, okay, I feel like this should be more something. And I did come up with something that I think will work pretty well, and is also good. I like when they do the spectating for the matches because it's a good opportunity for me to have like throw-in conversations of like her with her mentor, her professor mentor, and like and sometimes her student mentor, and like talk a little bit through like strategies. And I like it because then she kind of learns things as a character, and she's like, oh yeah, maybe like we should do that when we do our fights. And so it's like, it's kind of a little bit of a way to get around having constant like training this chapters, in that they can kind of watch a match and she can be like, okay, I'm like learning stuff, and like this is something that I can take forward into my match and something that I can consider happening. There's also a bit of like an antagonist type thing, which I was able to kind of mash into that chapter, which was also good. So I'm really, because now that we're in this fourth act, like everything that is building towards like the big bad fight. And so I'm just trying to make sure that I'm getting all my ducks in a row for that fight to happen. And that's why I had to do some chapter rearranging, that sort of thing. So yeah, but I'm overall like pleased with how this chapter went. I think it was good. I think there's it's a longer chapter. It ended up being closer to 3,000 words because the spectating, I need to like do the back and forth of the spectating, but I also need you to be able to like see the actual fight happening and like enjoy the drama and the messiness of that too. So it ended up being a little bit longer to fit all that in, but I feel like it's ultimately fine. And I do have a quote today. I have a quote today. So the quote is, "There is nothing more deadly than a taste of power. Once it touches your lips, you lick and lick and lick until they're dry and chapped and cracking, if only to get a little bit more of the flavor. It is addictive and consuming, and you are a fool if you choose to pretend that you are immune to the temptation." So yeah, I thought that is a good one. I like that. I like the lip chap metaphor, which my lips are constantly chapped, so it felt really really salient at the time. But anyway, I will see you tomorrow. And today I had an amazing brainwave. So I was literally coming out of the gym, and out of nowhere, and I was thinking about my issues with like going towards the end. So basically for this final act, this kind of big bad battle that we are leading up to in the book, there's been a few problems with that. So some of the problems have been like kind of logistically, it kind of making sense that they have this big battle. I was like planning to have all these kind of like obstacles, but I was like, but how would that work? And it was just kind of like, that's not really gonna work. And then I thought I kind of had a solution, but then I was like, oh, that's kind of like silly and that doesn't make sense. And there was just like, I'm leading towards this ending that I'm aware makes zero sense. So that's what was happening. And then as I was coming out of the gym, suddenly my brain like produced this solution, and it was amazing. It was amazing. You know, I know writers, I perhaps have a sort of like reputation for being kind of like, I don't know, like self-deprecating, especially when you're doing a first draft and being like, oh, my first draft was trash and blah, 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 blah. But when I thought of this idea, I was like, this is brilliant. This is brilliant. I was like, Liselle, you're so good at this. You're so good at this writing thing. Because it was just, and it just, this idea fixed everything. It fixed absolutely everything. It was amazing. And it just like, now the ending will make sense. It makes complete sense why this big fight happens. It also like adds this like very, very juicy element that I think will be really good. It introduces like an appropriate amount of danger for like a final act big bad thing. It's got like layers. It plays perfectly into the mystery that I have going on. It's perfect for the character's arc. Perfect, because that was also an issue. Like for the character's arc, it kind of like the whole fighting thing wasn't even making sense. And I was like, how does that work with her arc? It makes sense for the love interest arc. It's just like everything. Also, because I've been talking in the past about the side character, Corey, who I really like, and who is the love interest for the second POV character, I was talking about like messing up her arc and having to drop it. It also fixes her arc. It also fixes her arc, and it just, oh, everything together in like this amazing, neat bow package, just perfect. And I wrote down all these details and then realized I had to write 2 chapters before I can get to any of it. So yeah, so I just spent most of this video talking about my plan that I cannot actually execute until like 2 chapters from now. But anyway, so this chapter I had was like something to do with that same character I was talking about, Corey, with her arc, and it just works so perfect now that I have things coming up. It's so perfect. Anyway, so it was like a resolution for her basically, and it's from the second POV, because they like go together to go do this thing that like creates a resolution, and her resolution then reflects onto that second POV character, and she kind of like encourages her to do certain things, and then they were supposed to do something in the chapter, and then I like realized that I did not have enough time in this chapter for that, so I ended up adding a chapter later on, which I think I'd like cut enough chapters that this will kind of even out, but yeah, so I ended up adding a chapter later on just so I could give that the space that it deserves, because it's kind of like the closed circle of a mystery, or not a mystery, a task that this character has been doing throughout the entire book, and it's just like I didn't want to shove that into one scene. It just wasn't going to work, so I'm going to give it the space it needs, especially because I'm going to have all these characters that I'm going to add in later, that are going to add to that, and so it needs the extra space. So anyway, so now I have like 3 chapters before I get to the master plan of everything I put together. But anyway, so that was today, but I'm very proud of my brilliant, just like out of nowhere idea, because it's just, oh, it's so perfect, and I can't even like say how it's so perfect. It just is. So yeah, anyway, that was me today. I am going to be off on the Monday for the long weekend, but I will see you again on Tuesday.